Well, good morning once again. This is Mike Fitz, Park Ranger, Katmai National Park and Preserve. I'm standing on the Lower River Wildlife Viewing platform at Brooks River, world famous Brooks River. So I'm elevated about 10 feet off the ground. I'm standing right where the Lower River Bear Cam resides. And over the next hour or so, I just want to show you and talk to you about the different bits of activity that I see along the river. So I won't be answering your questions directly. I won't be monitoring the chat on explore.org. But I hope you'll enjoy my narration over the next hour or so. If you're just tuning in, we're watching number 480 Otis. He's one of the older adult males that we have here along the Brooks River. He's probably about 20 years old. We don't often see him in the lower river, but the lodge has closed for the season. There's very few people staying in the campground. It's relatively quiet around the river right now. So sometimes when there's less people activity, some of these bears that don't necessarily utilize the area near the mouth of the river will come down into this vicinity. He's the closest bear to me right now. I can see there's at least 3 others in my line of sight, and there's several more, I'm sure, hiding in the area, and they'll be coming in and out of the grass. So we'll be looking for those. If you're not very familiar with our Brooks River bears, number 480 was, I think, first classified as a older subadult bear, young adult bear, right around 2002 or 2004, I believe. So that would place him at a rough estimate on his age at about 20. And that's about the average lifespan of a brown bear here in Katmai. Although brown bears can live much longer, so life expectancy, lifespan, I guess, are a little bit different. So we can expect bears to live upwards of 20 years here in Katmai, but they have the potential to live much longer than that. And the oldest documented bears along Brooks River have been over 30 years old when they were last seen. To give you some context on where he's sitting, he's working a spot right now where a lot of salmon carcasses collect. That downstream side of the island where he is a spot where the water moves fairly slowly. And if you were to wade through the water right now, you'd be stepping over dozens and dozens of fully consumed salmon carcasses, just some bits and pieces of their heads, partially consumed salmon carcasses, some whole salmon carcasses that drifted down overnight. So a lot of bears will work these areas where the salmon just tend to collect and die as the river loses its energy. The spawning activity isn't really heavy right down here where I'm standing. Most salmon will spawn a little bit further upstream. If our cams continue to roll live this winter, we have enough power in the batteries to do that. You'll see that there's a lot of exposed gravel down in this area, and the salmon, of course, don't want to spawn in those areas where their eggs will be exposed to freezing temperatures. So the salmon somehow know that the water level in the lake will drop, and that they should spawn further upstream. So there's a few, vigorous live salmon down below me in the water, but they're just probably biding their time. They're waiting for the right time to move upstream and to spawn somewhere else. As an older bear, number 480, he seems to have a lot of worn down teeth. If I get a good look at him through binoculars, I can often see that his molars are worn down. He's missing a couple of canines. He seems to definitely bite the fish differently than a lot of younger bears that have all their teeth. If you're missing a couple of canines, it makes it difficult for you to break inside of the salmon carcasses. If anyone's ever tried to skin a salmon or fillet a salmon, you know that the skin is quite tough. So bears that are missing teeth or have worn down teeth are definitely at a disadvantage. Each bear in the river is essentially escorted by several gulls. Most of these gulls that you're seeing and hearing are glaucous wing gulls. Their numbers substantially increase when bears are feeding on salmon. The bears, partially consume most of the salmon. They leave a lot of scraps in the river. And of course, the scraps are quickly collected by scavenging birds. And right now, by far a few different species of gulls are the most common birds that we have here, but the other birds that I see most commonly tend to be scavengers as well. Ravens, different types of gulls, bald eagles, gray jays, black-billed magpies. Almost every time I'm out here, I will see those birds. I see very few species of other birds. So everything right now is trying to get prepared for the winter. The way that they're doing that is by fattening up on salmon. This is certainly, the last chance that many of these animals are going to have to gain weight before the winter. Most of these animals are going to be losing weight throughout the wintertime. So they want to get as much fat on their bodies as possible, especially the bears. From his angle, he's not really going to be able to see very well in the water unless he sticks his face in, just like that. So bears more or less know where to search for salmon, but it is sort of a random act. I mean, they have to really stumble upon any dead salmon that collect on the bottom of the stream. It's very easy for any vigorous salmon to swim away from him. You can see that he's really not trying to move very fast. He's not trying to catch live salmon, only trying to catch the fish that are dead and dying. Of course, he's one of the few bears that will visit Brooks Falls at this time of the year. When he's up there, he often catches some very vigorous salmon. He's waiting for the salmon to come to him in those situations. So he can make a quite a big profit in calories by fishing up at Brooks Falls, catching some fresher silver salmon that have entered the river in August, maybe some more vigorous sockeye salmon. And you can see he's being a little choosy right now, as are most of the bears. There's so much food around that they really don't need to eat every single salmon or every little last part of salmon. So while he swims upstream, why don't we take a look and see what else is happening along the river here. So it's a gorgeous, gorgeous fall morning. Just a little bit past peak color here. I'm not sure how well the color is showing up on the cams. But the birch trees, the poplar trees on Dumpling Mountain, just a bright, bright yellow right now. Fall colors seem to peak a little earlier this year than most years I've noticed. So here's our famous bridge across Brooks River. This will be removed in the next couple weeks or so, I believe, to prevent it getting damaged by ice and winter storms. Of course, over in this direction here, probably the oldest bear that we know of along Brooks River here. And that happens to be bear 410. She's thought to be a spring cub in 1988 or 89. So she is a seasoned veteran of the Brooks River. Knows the tricks of the trade. She's also very habituated to the presence of humans. What that means is that she's developed a sort of a waning response to people. In a sense, she's used to people. She's still a wild bear, so that doesn't mean you can necessarily be close to her and be safe. But she is more likely to utilize places where that people also occupy. She is known to sleep on the lodge or near the lodge. She's known to sleep on the beach right in front of the lodge. She's known to sleep underneath the platform where I'm standing. In fact, she did that last night while I was up here. She just walked right over where I was standing and she sat right down underneath me and took a nap. And bears that are habituated to the presence of people here at Brooks River, they have a little bit of an advantage too, because they can utilize areas where people are and people aren't. The bears that are less tolerant of us, that feel that maybe in their minds at least that people are competitors, their instincts, their genes tell them to stay away. People end up displacing them from certain areas along the river during certain times of the day. So we rarely will see those non-human habituated bears using the mouth of the river or the area near the bridge when people are very active. So as September continues to roll around, things get quieter and quieter here at Brooks River. Watch this camera to try to see if some of those other bears that maybe you only see in the cut bank area downstream of the falls come to this spot and try to fish for salmon. And I'm going to pan across the river here because we probably got both of our fattest bears right now. We got number 410 that I was just showing you. And way out near the mouth of the river here is number 409 Beadnose. She's also an older female. She's not as old as 410. She's probably about 10 years younger. 8 to 10 years younger. But she is very fat. Not caring for cubs this year. So she doesn't have to expend energy nursing them, expend energy protecting them from threats. She can focus on just getting fish. Hopefully she'll walk a little bit further this way so we can get a better look at her bulk. She is another bear like 410 that will heavily utilize areas near people. So she's also a fairly human habituated bear. Bears like 410 and 409, they often teach their cubs to behave in the same way. So when we have, it's hypothesized that maybe one reason why our numbers of bears in the 1990s and early 2000s increased here along the Brooks River wasn't solely due to salmon abundance, although that's the main factor more than anything else. But the other factor that maybe could have influenced an increase in bear numbers here along the Brooks River is that some of these females that are very tolerant and habituated to the presence of people were having a lot of cubs, and they were raising their cubs around people. So it would make sense that those cubs, if they had seemingly benign encounters with people, that they would also come back and raise their own offspring here and sort of start a cycle of increasing numbers of habituated bears. Of course, we're not trying to manage Katmai and Brooks Camp just for those bears that are tolerant of people, though. We also want to give those other bears the opportunities to feed as well. But during the day, if you happen to come to Brooks River, you're watching the cams during the middle of the day when people are very active, then you're more likely just to see these more human habituated bears than any other class of bear. Now, while 409 ponders what she wants to do, we'll keep an eye on her. Upriver, another bear entered the picture. So up near number 480, facing downstream, is number 32 Chunk. He's also a very fat bear. He's an adult male and is, let's see, he was first like a 2.5-year-old in 2007 or so. So he's just kind of coming into the prime of his life. You can see he's also searching the same exact place where 480, searching for fish. You might be wondering, well, Ranger Mike, how am I supposed to know these bears? How can I learn more about them? Again, if you're just tuning in, you're not haven't been watching the cams for a long time, there's an ID book for our Brooks River bears that you can download off of Katmai's website, and there is a link to that on explore.org in the About section underneath the main cam viewer. You can also just go directly to Katmai's website. Under Learn About Your Park, there's a download section, and look in there for the ebooks, and then you can download the Bears of Brooks River ID book. So you want to learn more about these individual animals, their life histories, some of the stories they can share with us about the bear world. Please download that book. It looks like 409. Beadnose got a little bit closer to us over here. So we'll pan back this way. Take a look at her. You can hear a plane that's taxiing through the water. Many of these bears, like 410, 409, unfazed by air traffic. But a lot of those non-human habituated bears, they're not used to sound. They're uneasy around aircraft, around motor vehicles. I think we're getting just a really good look on how fat she is right now. And she's so fat, her stomach almost hangs on the ground. So this was a very good year for her. Last time that she had cubs was she had yearlings in 2013. Would not be surprised if she came back with cubs of her own next year. A lot of times bears need, especially here in Katmai, a few years in between litters. Brown bears and grizzly bears are not as, or the reproductive rate is lower than black bears. Raising offspring is very taxing on their bodies. So they often need a couple of years in between litters, I should say. For many of these bears that are carrying an excessive amount of weight, I'm sure it's much more comfortable for them to be in the water than it is to be out of the water. They're very buoyant in the water. They don't necessarily get very cold in the water. It takes them a long time to cool down. Or even seeing some of the bears napping in the water. They'll just crawl up to the bank. They'll put their head on a rock or on a tuft of grass, and the rest of their body will be in the water, and they'll just sit there in the water and sleep, sometimes for a couple hours or more. And of course, the water temperature right now is very cold, in the 50s or lower. And certainly, I would become hypothermic within a matter of minutes if I just sat down on the water without any sort of protection or a wetsuit. Their fur, of course, gives them some sort of insulation, but their body mass overall helps to keep them warm. They're just so huge that they don't cool down very quickly. looks like 409 is going to take a swim out in the lake, out in the mouth of the river to fish. Probably noticed that I haven't been doing too much talking. I also want to give you opportunities just to simply listen and watch. We don't have our microphones on the cameras turned on right now, and that's for privacy reasons mostly. There still are people here, there still are people working, and if they were to be standing where I'm standing with the microphones turned on, then you'll be able to hear their conversations. So we may turn the microphones on once more staff leaves, once it's unlikely that we're going to get visitors out here at Brooks Camp, but we want to make sure that we are respecting their privacy, so the microphones are not turned on right now. You were just hearing one of the many UTVs, small vehicles that we use around here to haul goods and people. Far upstream, I think I tried to talk about this last week on a play-by-play that maybe the sound was cutting in and out, so I'm not sure how well you heard me talk about this. But there's a small flock of gulls upstream that you can see. And that's been there pretty consistently for the past, I don't know, at least a week, if not 2 weeks. A lot of those smaller gulls up there are Bonaparte's gulls. They have black heads in the summertime. They've molted those black heads, and now they just have a white heads with a sort of grayish spot right where their ear is. They're fairly small. They're very tern-like in their flight patterns. They're not as good at diving as terns are, but they will. They do, like Arctic terns. They do nest in this area. They nest on open tundra, and that there's been a flock of them fairly consistently feeding in that spot for a long while now. And I surmise that they're feeding on salmon eggs. There's an island that they're just downstream of. You can't quite see that island. But not all salmon eggs that get spawned in the stream are buried successfully. Many of them get washed up or dug up by other salmon. Some of them just happen to drift away in the spawning process. Maybe a bear kills a fish and the eggs just sort of spread away from that salmon and drift downstream. And as these eggs collect, as they drift downstream, of course the eddies and slow-moving parts of the river collect those like they do the dead and dying salmon. I've been watching some birds up at Brooks Falls even diving down into the water. And when I look really closely through my binoculars, I can see them picking up little pink things. And while I can't say for sure that they're salmon eggs, they sure do look like salmon eggs. Right size, right color, right place and right time. So if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, then I guess you can call it a duck. And if it looks like a salmon egg, right size for salmon egg, right time of the year, then you can probably guess that it's a salmon egg. As far as bears go right now, we've had most of them disappear out of our line of sight. I know earlier this morning, right around sunrise, there was a lot more around. There's 402 in cubs. There was many other single bears in the area. 435 and her 2 cubs were here near the platform. But right now, the only 2 that I can see are number 409 and 410 out in the lake. "409 is the bear that's closest to us. She's fairly recognizable, even in July. When she's blonder, she's thinner. She has sort of an upturned muzzle, and almost in all seasons her ears are blonder than the rest of her body. Oops, I apologize for my shoddy camera work. Tend to be looking around for other stuff, and sometimes the bear swims out of view. Oh, excuse me, actually, I did say that this was 409. This is 410. 409 is further out in the lake. "410 is a very classically looking grizzly bear, brown bear type. So she has all of those physical characteristics that you could stereotype into a brown or grizzly bear. She has a noticeable shoulder hump. Her fur, especially at this time of the year, is very grizzled in color, so it has lighter tips. Her face is very dish-shaped, so very rounded, like a dinner plate. And her muzzle sort of projects out prominently from that very rounded facial profile. So this island of grass that 410's heading towards is another spot where a lot of salmon will collect. Salmon that are sort of in their death throes. They're drifting downstream. They've already spawned. They're about ready to die. You know, they still will struggle. They'll still try to swim. They'll try to find an area where they are protected from currents that will take them away. Maybe further out into the lake or into the main river current. So sometimes they'll get caught up in those grasses. And of course the bears know that. And I imagine that she's going to continue to fish closer towards us. So I'll keep one eye on her. We'll go back upstream now. And in the river, it's going to be hard to see. He's pretty far away. Another adult male just came into view. He's right in the center of the screen. He just entered the river. Looked to me, it was pretty far away, but it looked like it could have been number 879. He's an adult male that we only see here in the fall, interestingly enough. Many of our bears, in fact, all of the bears that I've shown you so far this morning are here in July when salmon are running and you can fish, and the bears can fish through them at Brooks Falls. And they're also here in September and October, except for this guy. We have not been able to identify him in July, so maybe he's here in July and he just looks a lot different. Usually with the adult males, though, they're fairly distinctive. It's pretty easy to connect them from July to September. The younger bears, those are the ones that are really hard to identify from season to season because they grow so much and lack a lot of scars and other distinctive features. So what he does in July, where he goes, is unknown. That's, of course, when you're watching these bears, there's a lot that we know about them, but there's a lot that we don't know. A huge amount that we don't know. We know a lot about what they're doing when they're here, but once they move away from the river, it's kind of a mystery on where they go. Of course, we know that they're going to other places to feed on salmon, to gain weight, to find and compete with mates in the springtime, and to hibernate. But exactly where those fish or those bears are going, we just don't know. He'll likely hang out in that area for a long while. That bend in the river up there is a really productive spot for salmon carcasses to collect. So again, bears are smart. They're quick to learn. They remember where food is easily found. So anywhere where the river swings around, where there might be an eddy, where there might be an inside bend or the inside of a bend where the current is less strong and carcasses tend to collect. The bears are going to find those and they're going to remember those and they're going to visit again and again and again. So 410 and 409 are still swimming out in the mouth. I'm going to try to give you a look at salmon while we don't have any bears really close by to take a look at. So these are fish that have not yet spawned. You can see that they're bright red in color. They're ready to spawn. They're just waiting for the right time. Spawned out fish generally are much more beaten up than this. Their tails are yellowed. Their tails are shredded, maybe even sometimes half the size of what these fish show on their tails, because they don't have a shovel. They don't have any other mechanisms or tools to dig their nests. So a female has to dig her nest with their tail, and that's extremely hard and really abrasive on her. So these are the fish that the bears are ignoring down in this area. They'll swim through, but they're making virtually no effort to try to catch these vigorous salmon. Just not worth the energy expenditure. The dead fish may be worth a lot less calories than these, but the dead fish are a lot easier to collect. So 410 swimming a little bit closer to us. It's going to be hard to see in this light, but the fish that she picked up definitely was very worn. Looked like it started to have fungus growing on it. The skin is going to be very tough and hard to pull through. The flesh is going to be much softer, less firm than when it was earlier in July. The fish are expending, of course, all of their fat resources, much of their protein in order to spawn, since they're not feeding. So the consistency of their bodies definitely changes from July until September after they spawn. You can see a gull just swam in, checking on 410's dinner manners. Or I guess breakfast manners at this time of the day. As soon as the barrels swim away, the gull will come over. It'll try to pick up any salmon that she left in the water, if there's any there. So 410's now moving through those grasses. Again, she knows that salmon will get caught in the grass. It's an easy place for her to look for them. Adult bears like 410 definitely behave differently than younger bears, especially younger bears that are maybe just a few years removed from being cared for by their mothers. Adult bears like 410, older adult bears, I don't necessarily want to call it that they're moving in a confident manner, but they seem to really know what they want and how to get it. Younger bears oftentimes are still learning, they're still exploring. So they move and behave in a way that suggests that they're still learning much about how to make a living in the bear world. And of course, bears like 410, they seem to have already found what works for them. They know how easy it can be to pick up food in certain places at certain times of the year. 410's a bear that I can predict that if she's in the water, she's going to be moving slowly. She's going to be fishing. She gets out of the water at this time of the year, she's going to take a nap. She really participates in no other activities than that. While other younger bears may be more concerned about the movements and competition they face from other bears. They may engage in play. So there can be, certainly very distinctive differences between adult bears and younger bears as far as behavior goes. So it took her a few minutes in between the last catch and this one. But she expended very little energy during that time. You can see just how easy it is for the bears to find food. Not sure if you're able to hear it. There's some other engine noise that's starting to crank up. Most of our seasonal ranger naturalist or interpretive staff are leaving today. So as they move out, we'll give them a bon voyage. So we'll take a break for 410. It's probably about her fourth or fifth fish here in just a few minutes. But that's the park's large boat, large barge, and that's taking away almost all of our seasonal ranger naturalist staff. So if you came out here to Brooks River, Brooks Camp this summer, you met those fine folks. I'm sure they're very sad to leave. It, for me, is always bittersweet at the end of a season. Sometimes I had itchy feet and I wanted to go visit new places, have new adventures. But of course, when you spend a a summer at a place like Brooks Camp, it's very hard to leave. So they have about a 3-hour boat ride back to the docks at King Salmon. And then many of them will be flying out tomorrow. So before we had 409 Beadnose swimming around. She's moved out of my line of sight. 410 still pretty close to us near the bridge. Still munching on fish. Couple other bears upstream. So the bear that you're looking at right now, number 32, Chunk. I think I showed him back at the beginning of the chat, and he was a little bit closer. You can see that he's a hefty bear, certainly growing a lot over the past few years. Adult males tend to be darker than adult females. Their coats also tend to darken sometimes with age, and a lot of times with the season. 32 was much lighter in the spring and early summer before he grew this dark fur coat in. Same with 410, 409. They were all much lighter bears in July. When we see these bears come back in the spring, much of their fur is going to be bleached out. So that's that spot over there where 32 happens to be. He might hang there for sometimes a couple hours or more, and he may not move more than 100 yards, 150 yards in that time. There's so much so many dead salmon in that area that he really has no need to go anywhere else. So 410, she never left our line of sight. Still picking up fish. It's been a little less than an hour for her to be fishing, but it's about that time where if I see her get out of the water, I know that she's probably going to go straight to a daybed. Oftentimes we're asked, do bears visit the same places to rest and sleep every day? And of course, we don't know with all bears. Just like us, they want to rest where they feel secure and safe. 410, though, we see her so much that with this bear, at least, we can say that she does visit the same spots to rest. Maybe not the exact same spot, but the same places almost day after day. She'll be on the beach out here. If she's not on the beach, she might be right underneath the platform where I'm standing. She might be in the woods right across the river near the trail. So she doesn't tend to venture, very far away from the edge of the river. Our bridge here is on pontoons, so it's a floating bridge. It's anchored into the stream bed. And those anchors, those augers will be removed when they remove the bridge. But bears can walk underneath it if they want to. Some will choose not to. 410's a bear that often goes right underneath. And it's really hard to get kind of an estimate on how big she is. Her head is really as big as my torso. When she was sleeping under the platform last night, I was looking at her. You know, she was right below me. And she's a big animal. So it's about 10 a.m. Alaska time. I think I'll follow 410 and stay with you for another 10 or 15 minutes. Hopefully some more bears will come up on our line of sight. Right now it's just 410. And I think number 32 further upstream. If you're joining me late and you're wondering who's talking on the bear cam, my name is Mike Fitz and I'm a park ranger at Katmai National Park and Preserve. For the past hour or so, I've just been narrating some of the activity that I see here along the river. Right now we're looking at a big adult female, number 410, fishing for salmon, not too far in front of me. And I'm standing on an elevated wildlife viewing platform. I'm about 10 feet off of the ground. So I can stand here and I can safely watch bears walk through the river, near the platform, and maybe catch glimpses of some other neat wildlife as it waltzes on by. The one difference in the wildlife that you're going to see at this time of the year is how differently they interact with one another and compete with one another versus July. When the salmon first show up, not only are the bears very hungry, but the birds are very hungry. These glaucous-winged gulls will fiercely compete with one another for salmon. They'll fight one another. They'll chase each other away. I've seen them bloody one another. They sometimes will have very intense fights for over a minute or more in the river near the falls. Right now, they still might, displace each other from access to a bit of salmon, but they tend not to fight at this time of the year. Food is very, very abundant. You can see that, along the river here, most of them seem to be pretty relaxed. I still hear them calling out. A lot of those calls are sort of territorial displays. But definitely there's not the real vigorous fighting between these birds like there had been in July. So this is a season of plenty for bears, season of plenty for birds too. So 410 finished a fish. She picked one up. She decided, nah, that one's not to my liking. I think we got asked during one of our chats the other day, whether or not the bears are high grading the fish, looking for the fattiest parts. And in a way they are. They're certainly eating more of the whole fish, though, because a lot of the fat has been expended. Maybe the way that they're actually high grading, though, is just looking for fresher fish. They're not, eating just the skin or the brains like they had done back in July. But the way that they're high grading is that they're dropping the fish that are just too far gone. So she's turning around, current's carrying her back downstream. We talk about our bridge being or not being a safe wildlife viewing platform. Bears are unlikely to climb on it, but they easily can. If you've ever seen on the cameras or in person a bear get onto the bridge, it's surprisingly easy for them to do that. 410, as far as I know, has never done that, but younger bears can very easily. Those little vertical 2x2 slats are like toothpicks to bears. So all they need to do is reach up and rip them out. And that happens rarely, but it does happen. So if you come to Brooks River, do not bear view from the bridge. So maybe she found a slightly more vigorous salmon there that she wanted to chase. I'll try to move the camera here. We'll get a better look at her on this side. Oh. Maybe she's a little camera shy because she just went underneath. I'm not sure if you can hear her exhaling, but I hope you can. Look how big she is. those gates on the bridge are about at least 4.5 feet tall, I believe. So let's follow her. Let's see where she wants to go. Maybe nap time. I'm going to have to take a little detour. She may be going to sleep right underneath me here, like she did the other day. Nope, she passed up that spot. So she's digging in the earth right now, also consuming a little bit of clay. We see a lot of bears do that at this time of the year. It might help them with some, gain some minerals that they are lacking in their system. It could help them rid their digestive tracts of parasites. It could help to bind their stool together, because it is very runny right now. So I guess she didn't want to sleep right under the platform today. She just wanted to sleep near it. We can count on her and being down for about 3 hours or so. And if 410 is going to take a nap where about as good of a time for me to end the broadcast as any. So I hope you enjoyed the broadcast this morning, this little play-by-play. Again, my name is Mike Fitz. I'm a park ranger here at Katmai. Later this week, I'll be back online to do a few more of these. I think I have another one scheduled for 8:30 or 9 a.m. on Wednesday. So that's Wednesday the 23rd. Ranger Roy and I will be online to answer more of your questions more formally. I think on Wednesday or Thursday for a live chat. So stay tuned later this week. We'll be back online to talk to you more about Brooks River, more about Katmai, more about these bears, and all the amazing things that you can see here. So thanks for joining me, and have a good day.